A really special conversation between us. I think it's being Black women leaders and the partner theaters of this festival. So it just felt like a really important thing to bring all of us here. And unfortunately, we don't have Dominique with us tonight as a part of Detroit Public Theater. She's a new mom, and so we just hold space for her for sure. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of that tonight. We're holding space for Dominique. It's okay. She's on this new journey of just being a parent and doing her work and taking time for herself too. So, but we have her here in spirit, and just really happy to have Detroit Public Theater as part of this festival. It's my hometown, so I can be half of Detroit Public Theater too, so that's okay. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to take it on a roll, and I guess we're just going to get what we get. I deeply appreciate that offering. So I wanted to start, thank you, Carlia. I wanted to start with seating the space with Sweet Honey in the Rock on our children, and just an invitation to pay attention to what's resonating as you hear them sing the song. So much came up for me about a week ago, and I was like, I'm gonna play that. I'm gonna play that at this panel and see, hear from you about what comes up, and then of course we'll name ourselves at the space and how we're holding space with one another. But I'll start with ceding the floor to them.
Are not your children? They are the sons and the daughters of life, longing for itself. They come through you, but they are not from you. And though they are with you, they belong not to you. You can give them your love, but not your thoughts. For they have their own thoughts. They have their own thoughts. You can house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in a place of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You can strive to be like them, but you cannot make them just like you. Strive to be like them, but you cannot make them just like you. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and the daughters of life, longing for itself. They come through you, but they are not from you. And though they are with you, they belong not to you. You can give them your love, but not your thoughts. For they have their own thoughts. They have their own thoughts. You can house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in a place of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You can strive to be like them, but you cannot make them just like you. Strive to be like them, but you cannot make them just like you.
Okay. I'm just wondering too, maybe there's some words, not necessarily full sentences, but words that are coming up or bubbling up for you that we may want to seed into the space.
Independence.
Mm.
Acceptance.
Mhm.
I felt stop stub stubborn.
Mm. Mm.
Freedom.
Mm. Hmm. Hmm. It's my old prop and I can't.
But it's such, as soon as that song came on, I was like, I know these words. And I turned my chair and I pulled out the prophet. And so it's one of the, I just because I remember the first time I read it in here, there's so many things I underlined because I was thinking about my own kids who are very much on their, like, everything that you hear, like they have their own thoughts, and I think I do learn a lot from them.
Mm.
But
Hmm.
they're on this other journey that I think even when I was a kid, we were not yet as free. We didn't feel as free to do the things that these kids are now doing. And so I think this whole generation of kids is even more on their own path than I think mine was. And so I feel that all the time in, even in moments that can feel like a struggle. I kind of just will step back and think about where they might be in there. So I love that song, and I hadn't heard that one. But those words, like I said, just knew them.
Mm. Yeah. I think as you were speaking, what was resonating with me was humility. Maybe that's the thing I was struggling to capture. And so I would love to just have us name ourselves in the space, right? We start with Sweet Honey in the Rock. We start with on children. And of course, we're going to talk about our children at some point. But when I really thought about the gathering of this collection of people and experiences around this vast concept of motherhood and mothering while Black. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I thought about us, right? And I want to make sure that even in this conversation that we make sure that we are not putting ourselves last, right? So don't know if you have a practice of naming. I have been in my trainings, like naming my anti-racist trainings, naming my mother's lineage as far back as we can go. So I really just want to offer into the space that you are naming yourself, calling yourself into space, whatever your practice may be. And so I'm happy to model. I'm Nicole. I am daughter of Zephra, daughter of Johnny May, daughter of Kathleen, daughter of Gracie, daughter of Nancy, born in 1855. And on my mom's side, that's as far back as we can go. And in this space, I also name myself mother, mother of Zaya, mother of Lennox, mother of Haley.
I can start. My name is 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 Garlia, and I'm a daughter of Garlia, who is daughter of who is the daughter of you of 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 who is the daughter of Eula, who is the daughter of the first the first the first first the first Garlia. And it is the hardest thing for me to say is my own name. And I am the mother of Ida and Malachi.
I am Teresa, daughter of Dury, daughter of Marie, daughter of Louise, daughter of Sophronia. And I am the mother of Albert and Elijah.
I'll go next. My name is Nataki. I am daughter of Cheryl, daughter of Lillian, daughter of Alice Gertrude, and daughter of Mary Patterson, who was born in 1850. And I am the mother of Ayodele Emmanuel.
My name is Hannah Sharif. I'm the daughter of Wanda, the daughter of Beverly Eunice, the daughter of Dolly, the daughter of Verdi, and I am mother to Zahara and Asha.
Thank you so much for naming yourself in the space in your lineage. I also want to welcome the other folks that are off camera but present for this conversation. The invitation is extended to you as well, as you were there off camera and muted. But I still think the invitation in terms of the practice of just naming yourself in this space, even if we don't have the opportunity to see or hear from you. So offering a few breaths of that as we continue on. Y'all, I'm thinking about who needs to be present for this conversation, who ain't present for this conversation, whether that be our elders or our ancestors, or our neighbors, like whoever that is who needs to come forth and be present in here. I really want to open an extended invitation that those folks' spirit and energy can be present. I am on faith that in any space that I am gathered with Black women, that healing will abound. And so wanting to extend that, just wanting to extend that into the space. I feel like there is a lot of joy and celebration and resilience in being a mother, but there is also a lot of fuckery. And there's a lot of stuff that I know that I'm carrying that I have to unlearn, and I'm setting down along the way. I'm trying to disrupt, passing on trauma into my children, and seeking to make more space for them to be in this world as they see fit. Yeah, so an offering of a few breaths there. And thank you. I see these offerings coming into the chat. I also just want to take a moment before we continue on to just acknowledge I am Zooming in with you all today on the lands of the Piscataway and the Conoy people, now known as Washington, D.C. I honor the 14,000 plus year Indigenous stewardship here on this land, and the disruption of that stewardship due to colonization and the resulting genocide and displacement of Indigenous folks. I also call into the space the histories of my ancestors, whose stories are deeply entrenched in not just the land, but the structures and our understanding of our own lives right now, right? They are present everywhere. And so also seating them in the space. And then the last thing I want to do before I get into some fill in the blank kind of prompts that will take us off into lands unknown is really just acknowledge the vastness of motherhood, right? And that term, those people who have had a traditional understanding of motherhood, those people who have had untraditional means of motherhood, whether that is by stepchildren or adoption or surrogate or it was your niece or your nephew who you had to raise or you took in and chose to raise, right? I really am thinking about the expansiveness of the term. And so wanting to put that into the space too, we are offering our own perspectives, but we also acknowledge that there are many, many more perspectives to motherhood as well, right? And so my eyes, I welcome them all. And I just want to check with you all. Do you all, not to go too far into like politically correct land, but I think it is important to like how we name ourselves and what we call ourselves, right? So I would just ask all of the guests, right? Nataki, Hannah, Teresa, Garlia, do you all name yourself mother? Or is there another term that you use?
Yeah, my kids call me mama, which they and my own mom, I call her mom, but their dad is French and West African, so they kind of pulled that, so they call me that, and then they just got me this necklace for Mother's Day that says mama on it. So yeah.
So my daughter,
girl,
oh, go ahead,
no,
Hannah.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say that my daughter is 7 months old, so right now she calls me
My Zahara is 10. She has always called me mommy, although she's now hitting an age where she told me that she might need to transition my name so that because she's maturing. And I told her no. And my 9-month-old first word was mama. And I will just offer, we have a tradition in our family where my grandmother growing up, we called Nana. And then when she became a great grandmother, she became Big Nana, and her daughters became Nana. And so there is this kind of trajectory of growing into the next realm of motherhood in our family. And it becomes like a crown, right? I can't wait to be, well, I can wait, we got years to go, but when it's time, I look forward to taking on the mantle of that name, Nana, as I know my mother looks forward to becoming Big Nana, and that there's something really profound about having multiple generations breathing life into your children. My 9-month-old loves my mother, who was with us through most of the pandemic. She just arrived back after going home for 3 weeks. She's back, and seeing my daughter's face light up at her grandmother's presence, she knows that woman's heart, right? Like she knows, she doesn't just know that face, she knows that heart, she knows that energy, she knows when love enters space with her. And I think of my own relationship with I was most close to my paternal grandmother, but as I got older with my maternal grandmother, I hope as a mother, and I know I'm going off a bit of, but I hope as a mother that I can always hold space where my child looks at me and knows they are in the presence of love, right? Like, I feel like that's what successful look like for me as a parent.
Oh, I just echo everything you just said, Hannah. My boys are 17 and 22, and yes, one is young adult, but they're gonna always be my boys. They're young men now, and they tower over me. I have a picture to share if we have time for that. But they call me mama, mom, mother. And similar to what you just said, Hannah, my mom is celebrating her 78th birthday on June 4th. It's going to be a year and about 6 months since the last time we saw her. So we're celebrating her birthday with her. And my boys are just as excited. They call her grandma. She refused to be called big anything, big mama, big nana, anything. But she loves, we called my grandmother Grandi. and she looks forward to transitioning to Grandi. And so do I, quite frankly.
My kids call me mom or mommy when they want something. And because we already began to talk about proximity of like our mothers, I want to put into the chat here a prompt, and it says, my mother always said. So I wonder what comes up for you when you hear that and you fill in the blank for yourself. My mother always said.
My mother always still says, sense is not common and it may not even be sense.
Yes, Nataki.
You know, my mom always said, if you keep good credit, you can buy anything. And that advice has really served me well, particularly as I'm running a theater, because, and in this moment, I feel like any arts organization who has been able to keep, particularly a nonprofit theater, who has been able to keep their doors open during this pandemic, should get a presidential medal of something. Because you've got good financial management skills.
My mother always says, we plan and God plans, and God is the best of all planners. And I'll throw one more out. This is my grandmother used to always say, believe half of what a man says and all that he does.
I think something that my mom does is that she gives a lot of herself to other people and just does a lot of things and is a producer without calling herself a producer.
Yeah, my mother, you know, it's interesting. I think my mother's 25 years older than me, so we're going to be celebrating her 75th and my 50 this year. And I feel like right around the time she was like 35, she, you know, started to do some real work and interior work on what she would call, like, she was going to kill Crusader Rabbit, which is the part of herself that was like always taking care, always doing and always managing and always handling and always, you know, achieving and always running towards the things and taking care of me. I was raised in a single parent household. My mother raised me, you know, and she and I don't really feel like I ever experienced lack, although we didn't have any money. You know, and she was running to make sure that could happen. And I was in college and she was in, she went back to school. And that's around the time that she was like, I think I'm gonna kill Crusader Rabbit and just, you know, just make sure that she's really dead. Make sure that she killed this idea that she had to sort of be all, you know, and it was actually just in time, you know, a few years later, she would start to have to take care of the older women in my family, my grandmother, my great aunt, and her godmother. And I watched her through that process, come to a space of like, if I don't put my mask on, I can't help you. How do I heal myself so that I can heal you? What do I need to do in order to be able to serve this moment? And those are like unspoken lessons, like not things that she said, but the thing that she did say that I hold is this sort of death of this part of her that had to sort of fulfill everything and be in every space and hold everybody, you know. As I do what Teresa said, I spent the last 12 months saving an 85-year-old, $44 million organization. And there were a few moments where I had to be like, that's right, we're killing Crusader Rabbit. What did I bring her for? She didn't even have to come on this trip. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just, I'm Yan and hallelujah and everything else on mute, y'all, because we on Zoom. But I hope you can feel that energy.
I felt it, Nicole. I
love it.
I all of it. I saw all of it. No, and Taki, I think you made me think about something that my mom always said as a child. Was she would tell my brother and I things and then say, this is house business. So, my parents are both really big believers in this is house business. So, and we're not our generations are not the same in those ways. So if I get any flack from her, it's about I don't keep house business, but so I'm sure she'll say something about that. But Mom, you're great. I love you anyway. But yeah, so I think that's something I think that but there are things I think to her point. I think as you get older, that you think you want to keep for yourself, and you want to keep sacred until it's the right time to share. So I think that we're thinking about people who maybe held things in until they really needed to say this is the thing. Wait till you have the big reveal of, oh, I just got this whole big thing, I just did this whole big thing, and not all the small steps in between. You think about what you see on social media. People wake up and they will record every moment under the sun, and sometimes you're like, I don't really need to know all that. Really, it's okay. Keep yourself, so yeah.
I know about that house business.
But Garlia, you just brought up something that reminded me that my mom used to say, and that is, tell some and keep some. You don't. And, I think that's one of the reasons why I often take a sabbatical from the internet, from social media, because I don't want to air, who cares what I'm eating, what I had for lunch today? You know what I mean? So this is such an interesting discussion, because when you mentioned, this is house business, the other thing that came up for me growing up was we don't air our dirty laundry. And oftentimes in this industry, the plays that are really poignant to me are the plays that we don't talk about. The things, the issues, the themes that we don't talk about. And so I'm just having to rethink a lot of that growing up. And especially as, and also, as an artistic director who runs an organization of color, who gives a platform to what narratives we put out in the world, right? It's just interesting to me how we're processing all of that.
That's a really beautiful transition to another prompt that I want to seed into the space. And it is around, I think it connects anyway, right? In terms of, and I'll put it in the chat here, what's the most hurtful or damaging myth that you believed about motherhood, right? So, in terms of like locating ourselves in it, whether that be what we believed about our mothers or our grandmothers, and therefore we needed to be that, whether it was what society, Teresa, you just talked about stories and narratives. And I would say theater-wise, because of the limitation of stories told on a more commercial platform, right? The stories that I was told about motherhood was really like the big central pivotal Black woman who was dealing with all of her children and then her children's children or something like that. Didn't take care of herself, always gave and gave and gave, the kind of deal. So I'm just wondering, on that spectrum, obviously, as we're having a public conversation, what might be coming up for you all, hurtful or damaging?
I think there's a slight pivot on the question, but what came up for me immediately is when I was a senior in undergrad, I wrote a paper that really was kind of revolutionary in terms of a shift in my relationship with my mother. And it had everything to do with me, not her, right? And I wrote a paper, it was called Deconstructing My Mother as the Other. And through the process, I had to look at the story I told myself of my mother against who the woman was underneath. And as I started to try and write that paper, I realized I didn't know my mother as a woman. The lens through which I had always experienced her was how she served me, how she showed up in my life. And my mother, I'm one of 5 children, and my mother made sure she was very strict. She was very conscientious, but she made sure we had everything, that we could do everything. If you even had a glimmer of an interest, you were in classes, you had the best training, you were, I mean, and she did it for 5 of us while tap dancing with heels. And, you know, I love my father, but he didn't, you know, I always say my father showed up with flowers at my recitals or at opening night of my plays, but my mother made sure I made it to rehearsal on time and made sure everybody else in that minivan made it to all their extracurriculars on time. And so it wasn't until I was writing this paper that I was like, oh, I actually don't know who the woman is who had a life and dreams before she had a child. And even though there are times where we had this kind of tumultuous relationship, because I was very independent and my mother's a Virgo, so she worries about everything. And she says, I didn't worry about anything. This was a turning point where I started to try and understand her and see her as a whole human being. And it has informed so much about my work and my life as an adult, and also how I experience myself in moments of frustration with my child. I have to remember that she's looking at me through the lens of how I show up in her world, which is as a space of service currently. And that one day she too will be able to understand that there's a whole woman with hopes and dreams that have actually nothing to do with her. But I was an adult before I got there. And I wish and wonder, maybe not wish, but I wonder what having that ability to understand and contextualize the complexity of my mother before 21 would have meant.
I think for me, the most damaging is the idea of when I could, there was a moment in this pursuit of motherhood where, you know, I was told by as many people as possible that I should just sort of give up on my desire to be a mother. You know, it's something that I just knew about myself from so long. I mean, just from when I was like 4, I just was one of those people that always knew that she was going to be a mother. And I thought that my pursuit was going to be, you know, biological children. It turned out, you know, my daughter was adopted, and that, you know, when I was in high school, so it was born in the 70s. I'm a child of the 80s. I grew up in Oakland during the crack scourge, you know, when Oakland had the highest murder rate and teenage pregnancy was on an all-time high. Of course, when they say that, they mean like Black teenage pregnancy, and they mean that that's a bad thing. And so it was very clear that like getting pregnant before a certain moment was bad. Like there was timing, you know, couldn't do it in high school, and you better not do it. Don't you come back with any babies in college. You know, and then there's this whole gap in the middle of my life where I'm trying to build a life in which I can actually afford to sustain the life of a child, and sort of past the date that my body was able to do that work. And you know what I mean? And then of course the pursuit became something else. And even then it was like, well, you know, if you're so close to 50, you should probably just give up. And, you know, you don't want to be. And I remember thinking like, and there's a lot, you know, there's in television, it's in plays, it's in books, it's in, you know, your aunties and your mamas, and, you know, like this, it's in our society that says there's like if you pass that date, that's it, you give up, you keep moving. And then there's this other part, because adoption within the Black community is so complex. And I had to kind of come to grips with the fact that within the theater community, there was a very limited group of people that understood what I was doing and could support me in it. And I had to be very conscious of who was coming into my environment during our pursuit of parenthood, because I couldn't be like, these are my sister friends, we're all doing the same thing. I couldn't do that. I had to really kind of find the people who really were there to do it. And then of course my baby's a pandemic baby. So, you know, when she came and her timing and all those things, it's like, that's, I had nothing, that actually made me give up this idea of time and when it's important, when you can do it and when you should do it, according to whatever, very limited way people think about how you should live your life and how you should live your motherhood.
Yeah, Nataki, you brought up a lot of things for me as I think about when I gave up my job in a small theater because I did have I had my first child, and then the big question was, I guess I'll go back to work after 3 months, but then it was, who's going to take care of her? How was I going to be able to afford the person to take care of her, so that her, like, it just didn't all add up, and I think I had this myth that I just created in my head that I was going to sit. I'm a playwright, that I was going to sit and write my plays, and my baby was going to be in her high chair right next to me, and I had my second room in our little tiny apartment in Harlem, and I was going to write my plays and get all my playwriting awards, and my baby was just going to sit there and work. And I think about, like, I was like, that's nope, not happening. So I wrote a lot of essays. It was great. I got published in a lot of places, but essays that I wrote on my phone, I was just like, iPhone, this is how I'm gonna make it, right? So I just was like, that was my myth, that I was gonna become the next somebody with a baby on my hip. But I also think that's where this festival and the award and the grant that I want to be funded through this festival is a big deal, because I want people to be able to say, oh, I have a small child, I won a big playwriting award, I can support both of those things at the same time, because because the other side of that story is that parent in the arts just have to work in incredibly hard in order to do both their art and take care of their children, not to mention black parents, and then not to mention sole providers or single black parents. So I sort of was home with my kids and just took every opportunity with them on me. I think most of the pictures in the early days of Blackboard had been around for about 4 years before I had my first child, and all the group pictures, because I always take a group picture. I'm a photographer as well, so photos are everything. But all the group pictures, I have a child in my carrier, which when I finally got rid of that carrier, it had been through two kids. It had nursed kids who nursed till like they were 2 or 3. I mean, it was, I threw it away because nobody would ever want that thing. But I just having them with me, they were part of everything. And so I think there was this myth that was going to be super hard, and it is hard, but it's also not impossible, right? And so if you have a support system, and there are not books that teach you how to build a support system. I think that's something that is very important, that makes this parenting, um, eh, eh, as an artist, such a that makes it more feasible, is when you do have support, an actor friend who will watch your children, or theaters who, I think I was on a panel the other day with you, USITT, and we were all talking about the toys behind the box office. And so theaters who are family friendly. And so anyway, it was not until I found a pal that I think I really was able to talk about more of my experience as a parent in the theater, and define and find more immunity too. And I just went on a very big tangent, but there we go.
But I would just want to respond to this question, because I really, it resonated with me deeply. And just real talk, like, I have a lot of testosterone in my house. I'm the only, I have two boys, and of course, my husband is 12 years older than I am. And so, Nataka, you talked about those societal expectations. And I remember early on, when I decided that, okay, I'm going to do this theater thing. And we had, these small kids. And I said to my husband and my boys, said to my boys first, listen, if your father gets home before I do, it's okay to ask him to make you a sandwich. Okay. Just teaching them that you don't have to wait for mama to come home to cook for you. And if you're old enough, make a sandwich yourself, because what I am doing is contributing to the household. But I had to learn all of that, right? So that's I would say that's one of the most damaging myths that I believed about motherhood, that I had to be Wonder Woman, and I'm not.
One of my aunts, who's a doctor, when we were talking about the career I wanted to have and the work, she said, let me tell you something, the best thing you can do is get yourself a wife. And she said, don't think that you're going to be able to cook and clean and do all the things. You're going to have to make some choices about what things you can let go and what things you can hire out and what things you can push whoever your partner is to support. But if you want to succeed in that career, and I want you to, do yourself a favor and don't try and do it all. Figure out right now what you can let go of. And she said, give yourself permission. You don't wash toilets anymore. You don't do dishes anymore. You got children. They can do some dishes. They can fold some clothes, and every time, I've been able, I've at times had to script and scrap and save in order to have the support I needed. Or I've had to say, some things are gonna have to sit. This house isn't gonna be perfect. Laundry might get washed and stay in those buckets for a while, because I have to be at tech until 2:00 in the morning, right? And giving myself permission, setting some new standards, as you said, with my partner, with my husband, like, look, this is how it's gonna have to be this week, this month, and just being okay with everything not being perfect. I think it's really important. If you're trying to be the perfect mother, you're gonna screw your kids up 6 ways from Sunday. I ask my children for forgiveness a lot, because I make mistakes. And I put in the chat a little earlier this prayer from a mother's organization that I'm part of. And at initiation every year, we recite the prayer together. It's my favorite thing that happens, because it so centers and reminds me of not just our children's responsibility to us, but our responsibility to them in a heart space. And it's really asking the Creator to make us our best selves and to give us space for vulnerability and forgiveness, because I want to model that for my child too. And I had a mom, she won't be surprised by this, who didn't apologize with words, right? But with actions. And there are so many times I think about the fact that all I wanted were the words. And so I try and give both the words and the actions to my child. And I think that's part of what we do, right? We take the best of that we were given, and we also take where there were holes and we try and fill those holes. And we know our children will have their own that they'll try and fill. But I hope that every generation we're, being guided by the ancestors to help our lineage continue to evolve for the betterment of the whole.
Ooh. Yeah, I feel like there was a transition that was happening there about joy. Want to seed into our conversation about, in terms of, your journey in motherhood. Where is the joy in the ordinary for you? So I wonder, like, what comes up for you? What ordinary thing happens in your day that just releases joy for you?
I think I'll answer that like this. I have waited this long to be this tired. Do you know what I mean? So like, I'm so happy that, when she's going through a growth spurt and we're all up at 3 o'clock in the morning, this is the joy of my life. Even though there's a part of me that's like, if we would just go to bed, then we could all just be normal people. But these are the parts that I really love the most. I think it's like in the mundane. In your question, there was something about it that's like, there's something about it that's so simple. It's so simple, like when her little legs wrap around my body as I'm holding her, or lately there's a desire to touch the things that, my accessories, or, she's trying to pull things out of my face. And there's like a need to know through her hands, and, all of those little touches with her little fingers, or, all of that stuff feels so good. But I waited a long time to feel like this. So the good, the bad, the joy, the horrible, the moments where I'm like, if I could just get 10 more minutes of sleep, I'm gonna let you lay in whatever it is you did to yourself in the middle of the night so I could get those 10 minutes, and I'm gonna forgive myself for doing that to you. Yeah, I there's also, I live in a very rural, extremely white city, and very tiny, like a lot, I have a big job in a tiny place that is extremely white. And, so I feel like I have to do a lot to make sure that her life is like surrounded by Black joy, because I want to normalize that in these spaces, because there's not a lot of reflectors in this area, and I don't think we're going to put her in daycare. I don't know if I want her to hang out with the other people in the area yet, until I've established some of that with her. And I know that I have, a way to kind of make sure that I want her to be steeped in Black joy.
So we had our first son when I was 35, and the second one when I was 40. And the joy in that, to me, is we were so much more, I personally was so much more conscious than I would have been when I was in my 20s. And the other thing is that we were financially stable. Our son just graduated from college and he has no student loan debt, but because we planned for that, we were strategic and careful about planning for that. When I graduated from college, my parents gave me that gift. I didn't graduate with any college debt, and I wanted to be able to do that for my son. And so there's just so much joy around knowing that our sons will graduate, with, again, this financial management piece is really big for me. You can tell that, right? So I just wanted to make sure that we set our sons up for success when they start their journey in their careers.
I was I was dr- drafting an email to, I think, all of you in the middle of the night, which you probably got in the middle of the night. But I was in between my two kids who were in my bed, and I was like, I'm too tired to move them, and that, and for me, I made a big shift in my life in the last year, and so to be in my own space and to have had a lot of support from my community, my theater community, in order to change my life over the last year, and to get in this space where I am tired and writing an email in the middle of the night on another project that is not my full-time job, but my kids are there. I'm in my own space. It's peaceful, and I'm doing what I love, and they get to run around this place, and it's my own. And so for me, there's just joy in that is what I have wanted, is to just create. And they are there sitting next to me. It took about not 9 years, but in my office here, 'cause now I have my own office, there's like an art table over there, which is full of arts, and just like I bought them a lot of construction paper, and my daughter the other day made, there was a stream of my own play, and in the middle of the play she just kept passing me these flowers, and so she had made me this really beautiful bouquet of just like construction. My kids are so creative with like paper in their hands, so like it's like construction paper flowers that become like a pencil. I'm looking for one of them. They become like a pencil topper, and it can expand and it go in, and it's all paper anyway. And she makes these things for people all of the time, and so that's just, for me, that's really, that's something I love, I want to show. And then this is a heart she made for people for Valentine's Day. She made one for every single person in her class. This took her like 2.5 days. This is like hearts glued together. But anyway, so this is just, I love this because I just have a space where my kids can create all these things and just hand them off to people. And so that's where I'm getting some joy these days.
I also have a pandemic baby. I had my first daughter at 32 and my second daughter at 42. And it's what brings me the most joy right now is that my first years when we moved into St. Louis, I didn't have one meal with my family. And for the last year, I've had dinner at a table with my family every night. I've watched the 9-month-old have her first bite of food and every bite in between. And for the majority of that time, I have also had my parents at that table. And it is really, dinner is my favorite time of the day, and it's messy and it's loud and people talk over each other and we put our forks in each other's plates. And I love every single minute of it. And it just reminds me of who I am and where I come from. My first year was full of fancy dinners with people who think they're fancy, and all I wanted was to be home in my pajamas at the table, put my fork in my daddy's plate or my daughter's plate or whoever's plate. And I'm grateful because I also feel like my children and my family remind me and ground me. This field can be a little bit of a mindfuck. In good ways and bad, up and down, when you're up or when you're down, both ways. It can make you think, it can turn your head if you're not careful. And my family reminds me what's real and make sure that, you can't even get halfway to a head turn before somebody will pull you back. Uh, the baby will poop on you, and your mama would tell you something about yourself, and you'd be like, you're right. And I find joy in that too, right? Like all of that for me is just like, yes, right?
And kids will keep you humble, so will your family. Oh my goodness. Y'all, our time is collapsing on us much quicker than I thought that it would. And I wonder if there is, whether that's a quote. Hannah, you shared a prayer that I can't wait to read after our conversation. But I wonder if anyone else, or Hannah, if you had more, maybe something that's been inspirational to you, or whatever it may be, whether it comes from a play, a song, a quote, a prayer about motherhood that you feel like would be useful and nutritious to us as we're at different points of our journey. And that Teresa, you shipping grown men off. Anna and Nataki are on diaper duty. Bless you. And Garlia, you've got kids that are in the middle, I think, along with me as well. So wanted to open the space to that just before our time collapses.
We're really close friends with I'm not going to name drop, but we're really close friends with a pretty prominent actress and her husband and their daughter. And when we stopped by their house, we were in LA like the month before we had to go down south to go be with my daughter's birth mother for the birth. And basically this woman sat me down and she was like, just so that you're clear, she was like, you can listen to everybody's advice under the sun, but just remember this. There's going to be so many times where you're just going to have to pour yourself that glass of wine and forgive yourself for being a terrible mama. Like, and you're just going to have to do that. And she was like, the first time you do it, it's going to be the surprise. You're going to be like, oh, I have to forgive myself for this. This I have to forgive myself for. But in 7 months, I have probably done it 3 times where I was like, let me just go ahead and put this glass of wine and forgive myself for that stupid thing that I did, that I hope won't, have ripple effects in her life. The forgiveness of the things that you do. The forgiveness is how I think you meet her at the other end when she's where we are. Yeah.
I often say, I didn't appreciate my parents until I became a parent, because to your point, Nataki, I've lost count of the times that I've had to ask my boys for forgiveness and to forgive myself. So I think it's incredibly important. I mean, all the grudges and the stuff, and my mom in particular was very strict. We couldn't spend the night. I didn't go to parties. We couldn't hang out. She was just very, very strict. And growing up, I thought she was the most insensitive person in the world. But as I became a mom, I understood that she was protecting me, how much she was protecting me. And I just value our relationship so much. There is nothing under the sun that my mom needs that I have that she can't get. So I just want to see it in the space, how incredibly important it is to forgive ourselves when we make mistakes. And it will happen. It will happen. But I'm learning to be big enough to say, I'm sorry.
I'm thinking of a magnet that I got my daughter a few weeks ago that said, "Be, be, be beautiful a girl. You can do hard things." And I, it's, I don't know what my kids sometimes think about all of the things that they see me doing. I know that they know I'm in a lot of meetings all the time. I'm on my various computers. I say don't talk and go in your room, or keep the TV on low. And do they know these things that I'm purporting to put out into the world, or do they know all the steps to change this situation to get us here? And so I think that was a quote that I hadn't actually verbalized for myself, but really got me through the last year. I wrote an essay in American theater at the start of the pandemic just about my situation, and then I made a choice that I would change it by teaching myself to a live stream, right? and then that shifted into doing something for a pal last Mother's Day, which we'll never do it again. And Rachel always says, no, I can't believe we did that. But that got us onto this path, and for this festival. And so I just want my kids to know that hard things are totally possible. And yeah, there are times where, yes, now you just sit back, you have that glass of wine. Those are definitely moments of talking that I'm like, yep, this is a day for that. I'm tired. I'm closing my eyes. There are times I'm just like, okay, and I just remind myself, and I think we remind ourselves of where we were and where we're gonna go, and where I'm going is what keeps me just writing emails to all of you in the middle of the night and doing all these things. But yeah, that's just something. Beautiful girl, you can do hard things too.
All right, y'all. Listen, maybe we can end it with a lightning round. And so my last kind of like fill in the blank for you all is, I will mama bear your ass if you. I want to be clear, mama bear is about protecting our children. So fill in the blank. I will mama bear your ass if you, or booty if you don't, if you don't partake in the cussing. Mm-hmm.
I think the list is so long that I will mama bear your ass if you do anything. If you deny the necessity, the quality, the beauty of my daughter's freedom. If you make her feel like she's not free in any way, I will come after you. I can tell you a story about that, just really quickly. I had this nurse call my house and say, can I speak to the mother of and my name is Nataki, so I'm used to it, right? So I was like, Ayodele, and she had the nerve to say, oh, I'll never be able to pronounce that. So I said, well, what's your name? And she said, Michelle. And I said, oh, Lochelle. And she said, no, Michelle. And I said, oh, Quachelle. She said, no, Michelle. And I said, oh, Seychelles. I'll never be able to pronounce that.
Get it, Nataki.
call my house. My daughter's not even 5 months old. You can't pronounce her name or even try. So the next time she called, she said, hi, I'm Michelle, and I'm calling to speak to the mother of, I think you pronounced her name, Ayo. Oh, Ayodele. Yes, that's me. I'm Nataki Ayodele's mother.
Mm.
No. Don't deny her freedom. You can't say her name. Work on it. And I tell people they have to call her by her name before they get the nickname, because you better be able to say the full thing, sweetheart. That's how it works.
That's how it works. Oof, come on.
I will mama bear your ass if you try and break my child's spirit.
Oof.
Right? Don't do it.
Mm.
We spend a lot of time in this house making sure these children have the space to become whoever the fuck they want to be. The only rule in our house is if you have something to say it respectfully.
Mm.
But you can say anything you're feeling.
Mm.
You can explore the full spectrum of your humanity. So don't step in my child's space and try and limit or break who she was born to be. You will have to take my life first.
Mm.
I am so with all of that. I am so with that because I'm thinking about my grown ass son went to the doctor when he was in college at Point Park University in Pittsburgh. And because the medical facility couldn't verify his insurance, they throwed his tests away, his blood tests, his everything. And my name was on his insurance card. So they could have very easily reached me, but I felt like it was the easy thing to do. So they just disregarded. They just disregarded my son. And so that's when I had to mama bear their asses. And I don't care. And of course the facility said, well, he's 21 years old. He's a man. I don't care. I am still his mother. And as long as there is breath in my body, I will mama bear your ass if you disregard my children.
Mm. Come on with that. Garlia, what you got? What you got? And then I'm going to cede the floor to you about the festival because we're closing it out.
Yeah, we're closing it out. I mean, I think all of those things. My children are small, and I'm in a predominantly white community. So I think all of the time I'm on my P's and Q's about everything. And I send my daughter to dance school in Harlem so that she's around Black girls doing ballet instead of white.
Is it
Yes.
over?
No, it's not over. In fact, I'm speaking right now.
How long?
How long?
It's almost over, boo.
I was going to say something really beautiful about you, but I don't know. I'll say lots of beautiful things about you. Yes. Duty calls. I was going to say that there was a moment a few weeks ago where my son, was upset about something, and the adult's response was almost as if he was going to like harm other people, and and I was like, he's a child. What are you talking about? And then she's like, oh no, I didn't mean that he would do anything. I just want to keep people safe. She used the word like safe. And I was like, so what do you mean safe? Like, well, he's not gonna hurt anybody. He's 6.5 years old. And that goes back to an essay I wrote when I had my son, that's in the Washington Post, called "No Hoodies for my son," because I had this fear about being the mother of a Black son, and I was like, what will my life be? He is going to have to do and look and say, and there's a whole code that he might feel like he has to live up to just in order to get through life. You know, my dad is not 96. He was in World War II. He's, you know, performed Othello hundreds of uh, times, but he has faced so much racism in this country, and it's all been with a lot of smiling faces, a lot of, you know, kindness that isn't really, you know, kind. And so I think he's, you know, for sure taught me how to go through the world in that way. And my mom is like flames. She'll she'll twist you around and let you know where you shouldn't go in a minute, as she did. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. Teresa, Hannah, Nataki, Garlia. I deeply appreciate being able to hold space with you this evening. I'll carry your laughter, your wisdom, your joy with me as I continue this weekend, y'all. Whoop, whoop. Going to the wine glass. Garlia, my love, thank you so much for the invitation to come and moderate this panel. I give the space back to you to close us out.
Well, Nicole, you just reminded me that when I first met you, I think we had an email exchange and we're like, we want to be friends, that's just how, full disclosure, I approach most people. I'm like, I would really like to be your friend. So how are we going to work this out? So just so you know, and Nicole and I definitely have the email exchange of like, we want to be friends. So thank you for being here. And I just, you know, I know, just as we end, I think part of bringing us all together was to honor this moment with this festival. And it would be great if you know, you would all share really what brought you into this space before we end the evening.
So the folks at PAL got in touch with me a while ago when I first started talking about adoption, and you know, and I was thinking about like what it meant to be in the positions that I was in. I was in a second tier position as an associate artistic director, and just sort of worried about what it meant to start that process when I knew I didn't have a lot of support financially in any other way, and really grateful. And then when you all got in touch about this festival, I was like, well, then of course, because at the very least, there's so many blessings in this moment of gathering. But the smallest, tiniest blessing is knowing that there is community here, and that is the thing that I've been, you know, longing for. Hannah is my sister friend, so like that's my community, right? But to know that there's more, and that there's a way for us to connect and support each other, that's the stuff of life. That is the stuff of life.
I was grateful when I first heard about this. I was so grateful that it was happening. I thought, what an incredibly powerful festival. And also one that I'd never heard of before. Black mothers centered with their stories and their voices. And I was like, whatever I can do to be part of it, I want to be part of it. It has been a joy to be able to help support the work. I think Melda's crafting a beautiful play. I'm so excited and proud to be working with Dawn Monique Williams. I'm so honored to be with this panel of women who I look to and reach to. And you guys forgive me for going off screen. My child came in and just started projectile vomiting because that's how motherhood works, but she is okay. She's smiling right now because she knows she's about to get a bath. I'm grateful that this space exists where I could say that and everyone in the room knows what that means. And that's really a gift. And I hope that this is the first of many opportunities that we can really convene and circle around and support each other and uplift each other's work. I'm glad it happened now. I wish we'd had this a decade ago, but I look forward to the future.
Yeah, and same here, Garlia, community. You know, I think it was Hannah Finland who introduced me to PAL. And I think I said this to you, I really love this business model. For organizations of color, this is a godsend because we wear so many different hats. And the fact that I haven't had to micromanage this process, this production process, last night I spent the wee hours. I was out late last night with a potential benefactor. And under normal circumstances, I would have had to have been at a rehearsal. And so this has been an incredible process for us. I really think that this is a viable business model particularly for organizations of color.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think just being in each of the rehearsal spaces, and I think one of the first meetings I think we had with Hannah, and you talked about your daughter's hair, and I was like, in what space am I in? No, normally is that talked about, and we actually understand, and I just feel like this is so sacred. Like I just feel like there's a bell that is ringing. There's a song that needs to be sung when we all gather. And I, in my dreams, I think I said to John, I was like, I want everybody in a room, and then imagine we're in a studio and other people are there, and we're like, okay, well, we aren't in a studio, so we can't quite, do all of that. But I think just to have this space, and I do want it to grow, because there's so many Black women leaders. I could name, I could name so many right now who are not here. Sade of the National Black Theater, Kelly of the Fire This Time, Sandra from Harlem 9, and Liberation, Camilla Forbes. There's so many Black women, parents who are just not here, but we are growing, and so I think this is just the first step of all of us starting, to come take a together. I also think of Sarah Bellamy too, who I have not gotten the chance to meet, but is someone who I have an email to her in my head. So just another person that is not here. But so just thank you so much for being here, and we're holding space for Dom and her new baby as she's on this journey, and taking her a time to do her work as she should. But so happy to have Detroit Public Theater in this space, which is also led by 3 moms, and so that was one of the first spaces we also reached out to, because Sarah and Courtney have also, just in terms of being a mom and building a space, have also really held it down too. So thank you everyone for being here and for participating.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
It was good to see everybody.
I know.
Great
Good to meet you,
y'all.
Hannah. Good to see you again.
You too.
It's great to see you too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.